Welcome to Mindfully with Tumishe, the podcast that invites you to explore mental health with honesty, compassion, and openness. Each week, your host, Tumishe Oladapokuku, shares personal stories and stories from people like you. Together, we'll confront mental health myths and build a space where imperfection isn't feared but embraced. From self-esteem struggles to relational conflicts, we're here to discuss it all, with guidance from experts and real raw stories that inspire healing. It's time to live mindfully. It's time to be compassionate with ourselves and each other. Mindfully with Tumishe, new episodes every week, available wherever you listen to podcasts or at blackimages.com.
One more episode and Mindfully with Tumishe would have 100 episodes. This is beyond a milestone for me. The journey to this 100th has been one of unlearning, learning, and relearning in that order. I had to unlearn a lot of what and who I thought I was, then reintroduce myself to myself. And that has been the hardest part. You know why? Whenever I felt like a chapter had closed, like I had taken a learning from a phase, another opened. But it didn't just open, it opened with fresh challenges, begging for new lenses by which they wanted and must be viewed. My favorite quote, you know by now, is life is lived in the transitions, and during that transition, life takes a new meaning and shape. Every experience is new. And I'm so grateful for Mindfully with Tumishe, episode 99, season 7. All right. Okay, I ran ahead of myself there. Hello, mindful partners. So glad that you're here. And we will continue to explore the concept of societal narcissism. This exploration, if you followed up to this part, started with what healing the month I was away from the mic gave me. It gave me language. The language that helped me and still helping me to navigate the reality of my mental, social, and physical health. This led to the explanation of my observatory diagnosis, which I borrowed from my friend Societal Narcissism, a concept that speaks to how we have become a people who legislate over other people's emotions and experiences, like we understand or are privy to their stories of origin. Of course, during this expose, we looked at emotional power grab that seems to be taking over healing spaces. I called it emotional colonization. This emotional power grab is both subtle and in your face. This is going to lead me to talking about belonging today. And if you are a fan of Mindfully with Tumishe, you know that talking about belonging is no strange. We have about 3-4 episodes that talk about belonging. There's one with Uche, and there's one with Ola, right? But it seems the more we talk about belonging and fitting in, the more humanity digs our heels in. And we're talking about belonging without disappearing into a culture that seems to legislate over your feelings or emotional agency with the not so subtle statements and attitudes that say, if you're healed, you'd respond this way. If you're evolved, you shouldn't feel or wouldn't feel that way. If you've done the work, you'd agree with me. The first thing I will concede to before I continue with this thought is that we as humans cannot ever not want to fit in somewhere or with some people. It is the way we are wired. For connection, the need to be heard and seen. There will never be a time on this planet, maybe in Mars, but on Earth, that a person, no matter how bizarrely they think, will not want to fit into a group of people or an ideology. Yet, belonging and fitting in are very different. Of course, you know the background of this for me is with Brené Brown's work on shame, vulnerability, and imperfection. So today, let's talk about this deeply human concept. Something we all want, whether we admit it or not. You want to belong. Let's talk belonging. Belonging, not fitting in, not being approved of, not being tolerated. Belonging, the kind that lets you exhale, the kind that doesn't require rehearsals. Somewhere along the way, many of us learned that belonging came with conditions. Be quieter, be stronger, be agreeable, be grateful, wear your hair a certain way, do not wear trousers, wear skirts. And slowly, sometimes lovingly, sometimes painfully, we learned that disappearing was safer than being different. This episode 99 is about that moment. The moment you realize you've been present everywhere except with yourself. Let me circle back to 2021 when a friend asked a question that I documented. Yes, 2021. He was wondering why social media had become so pervasive and the amount of negative energy that seemed to vibrate through it. Only it is worse now in 2026. I answered, the world is a lonely place, and most of us can't sit in our heads because of the dark thoughts that may drown us. The imposter syndrome, I think, is what makes social media alluring. With all low-key think we don't deserve a place at the table. Social media seems to be a table. All is acceptable and accepted. We all like to think that we are okay and we don't care what anybody thinks. And of course, the narrative pervading our cyberspaces, religion and faith all points to what Polonius said in Shakespeare's classic Hamlet, to thine own self be true. Okay, so while I'm still 100% in tune with what I wrote and the ethos of what Shakespeare said in Hamlet, or what Polonius said in Hamlet, I have always heard all my life, Tumishe, you live like you don't care what people say or think. You live your life. Again, this might be true. However, what I think might be truer is that we all have some form of need to please. Even if it's just one. Just some person. That person that can press your mummy button. There's that one person whose opinion of you will make or rock your core. For the good, for the bad. In being true to yourself, it might be more realistic if we embrace the truth that even in wanting to fulfill purpose, destiny, passion, mission, and all, there is a covert, deeper need to please so that we can be accepted, so that whatever it is we want to sell, we catch on fire and change the world. Indeed. This is very, very noble. One thing that seemed to bother me, though, this is extremely subjective, very subjective, meaning it might not resonate with you. That's what's bothering me, might not resonate with you, is that some have thoroughly become so selfish with this amazing phrase and have interpreted it to mean I care for no one, I will leave, and the consequences of my actions doesn't concern others. Consequences here are good and bad, and I think that's where I cringe. How is it even possible in a world of 8 million, billion, not million people and counting, as I'm speaking, another child has just been born, that even in being true to yourself, one wouldn't impact another? The very fact that this phrase is still being used centuries after it was written and said, for those who have acted it, tells us every single thing we do impacts someone, at least. We literally die to self when we choose that person whom we can allow to push our buttons. There's that one person you are loath to disappoint. I use this word choose and allow because this can be deliberate and subconscious. To a person who never experienced positive reinforcement as they grew up, they probably will subconsciously want to prove themselves worthy of being in and may subconsciously to overcompensate or live a life that explores and exploits others to notice them and align to their truth. On the flip, someone who exudes so much confidence and seems to have everything together might low-key be fighting the approval or acceptance addiction with their bravado and achievements. Of course, I do not intend to generalize. The need to belong is not weakness. It is biology. Our nervous systems are wired for connection. Disconnection registers not just as sadness, but it registers as threat. Many of us didn't grow up learning how to belong and remain intact. We learned how to adapt. We learn how to read the room, the eye. Yeah, I don't like the African mother thing, but you know what say when they say African, Nigerian mother, Yoruba mother for that matter, the eye. You learn to read the room, how to become what was needed. We all grew up to be some sort of amoeba fitting into any kind of container here, environment, event we find ourselves. And those skills kept us safe. But skills that saved you in one season can cost you dearly in another. I have seen this play out severally in everyday things and ordinary ways. And I'll use the most, I don't want to say mundane, but one that is most relatable to all of us. And that's a group chat on WhatsApp, okay? You know how noisy your WhatsApp groups are. How many do you belong to? Everyone is talking, everyone is laughing, debating. There's some silent people. People are sending voice notes, people are doing forward messages, broadcasting, all the things happening. WhatsApp is actually a world on its own. And this particular day, we're having very relatable conversation about the stories of origin. And I'm typing this message. I read it, I'll delete it, I'll type again, I read it and delete it. Then by the third time, I asked myself, very quietly, of course, why am I doing this? Why am I editing my truth like a press release? And the honest answer was simple. I didn't want to be misunderstood. I didn't want to disrupt the vibe. I didn't want to be that person. And I realized in that small moment, I wasn't choosing peace. I was choosing disappearance. Not because the people were bad or they wouldn't understand, but because my body had learned that belonging meant staying easy. It has understood that not because the stories weren't mine or the stories I wanted to share went true or would, in quotes, disrupt the vibe, but because I can actually feel when my truth makes someone uncomfortable. And that's the moment many of us meet the real tension between fitting in and belonging. Somewhere between our childhood and adulthood, belonging became performance. We learned to shrink to keep the peace, to silence ourselves to avoid conflict, to delay the truth so we wouldn't be rejected. And there's the part many of us don't say out loud. We don't just fear abandonment. We fear being fully seen and then rejected. So what do? We curate ourselves, we soften the edges, we manage reactions, and over time we begin to feel lonely in rooms full of people. Then empathy becomes supervision, belonging becomes compliance. Let's take a pause for a moment. Notice your body as you listen. Where do you feel ease when you think of belonging? And where do you feel a quiet tightening, like you're bracing for a fight? That place in your body remembers when you learned to disappear. Here's the truth I'm learning. True belonging does not ask you to disappear. It asks you to arrive honestly, with your questions, with your limits, with your unfinishedness. Belonging that costs you your voice is not belonging. It is survival. And survival may keep you alive, but it rarely lets you live. Real belonging has boundaries. It allows difference. It makes room for discomfort without withdrawal. It doesn't rush your healing. It doesn't demand your performance. It lets you stay whole. It gives room for unity, not uniformity. And this is the line that holds everything for me. Belonging that requires self-erasure is not connection. It is compliance. As we close today, I want to leave you with a few gentle questions. Of course, you know you don't have to answer that now. I know that I left you with one about a minute ago when I said to notice the tension in your body and think of where belonging means ease for you. All right, I know I did that, but I want to leave you with these questions, not to answer now. Just sit with them. Sit with the question and allow the answer come to you. Are you ready? If you're driving, you can't write, of course, you can release sing. But if you're sitting at your desk and listening to this, pick a pen. Or if you're running or taking a walk, let's take our phone's note app and write these questions for later. And if you have time to listen to it, to answer them now, fine. But the most important thing is for you to allow the answers to come to you. Are you ready? Where in my life do I feel free to be fully myself? Where am I accepted only when I am quieter, smaller, or easier to manage? What parts of me have learned to disappear, and why? What would it look like to belong without betraying myself? No, you're not fixing this question today. Awareness is just enough. It is enough for now. Again, remember, allow the answers to come to you. Because you are allowed to belong without losing yourself. And if a space only loves the version of you that disappears, that place may not be home. Thank you very much for sticking with me. And of course, I'm so excited. Next week is episode 100. I hope that this conversation, us trying to unpack my friend's term, social narcissism, is helping us find ourselves, to be true to ourselves, and to know how to give of ourselves and to receive too. So if something in this episode stayed with you and you'd like to sit with it a little longer, there is a space on WhatsApp, Mindfully with Tumishe, where you can join the conversation. It's not a place for fixing. It's not a place for diagnosing or advice giving. It is a space for reflection, listening, and shared humanity. You're welcome to join if and only if it feels supportive to your process. The link is in the episode's show note. But whether you join the conversation or keep it private, remember this: your healing does not need an audience. Love yourself, love your neighbor, love your country. Above all of this, love God. He is the essence of your being. Stay mindful. I am Oluwatumishi Oladakbo Kuku.
This is Mindfully with Tumishe, brought to you by Black Images.